Imagine a man so kind, so honorable, that his name would be remembered for generations, not just as a wealthy landowner, but as a man of deep integrity, faith, and love. This is the story of Boaz, a man whose actions not only redeemed a widow, but also played a key role in the lineage of King David and Jesus Christ. Before Boaz enters the picture, we meet Naomi and Ruth, two women marked by tragedy. Naomi, an Israelite, leaves Bethlehem years earlier with her husband and two sons to escape a famine. They settle in Moab, where her sons marry Moabite women, one of them being Ruth. But soon, Naomi's husband and both sons die, leaving her and her daughters-in-law as widows. Heartbroken, Naomi decides to return to Bethlehem, telling her daughters-in-law to stay behind. However, Ruth makes a bold and unexpected choice. She refuses to leave Naomi. Not only that, she makes a declaration that would echo through history. And this declaration marks the beginning of Ruth's remarkable journey. In Ruth 1, verses 16 to 17, she says to Naomi, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." This wasn't just an expression of loyalty, it was a total transformation. Ruth, a Moabite, a foreigner, chooses to leave everything behind and embrace Naomi's people, Naomi's land, and most importantly, Naomi's God. After a long and heart-wrenching journey, Naomi and Ruth finally arrive in Bethlehem. That's when Boaz steps into their story. During the time of the judges, Israel is in chaos. There is no king to lead the people, and everyone does whatever they think is right, even if it is evil. Many turn away from God, and lawlessness spreads across the land. The strong often oppress the weak, and the poor, widows, and foreigners have little protection. It is a time of moral decline and uncertainty where injustice and violence are common. But in the midst of all this, Boaz is different. He stands as a man of honor, someone who follows God's ways, even when many around him do not. Boaz isn't just wealthy in possessions, he is rich in character. The Bible calls him a man of standing, meaning he is respected by the people of Bethlehem. He has a strong reputation for honesty, kindness, and leadership. Boaz doesn't see himself as above others, but leads by example, following God's laws with humility and generosity. Most importantly, Boaz is a protector of the weak. In a time when many ignore God's laws, Boaz lives them out. His kindness and integrity make him stand out as a true man of God in an era when such men are rare. As Boaz walks through his golden barley fields, the warm breeze carrying the scent of harvest, he greets his workers with a blessing, "The Lord be with you." This simple greeting reveals much about Boaz. In a time when many have forgotten God, he honors the Lord in his daily life and work. His faith isn't just something he speaks about, it shapes how he treats people. His workers respect him, not just because he is wealthy, but because he is a kind and just leader. But on that day, as Boaz looks across his fields, someone new catches his eye, a young woman carefully gathering leftover grain, moving with quiet determination. She isn't just any gleaner, she is Ruth, the Moabite widow. Understanding the dire situation she and Naomi face, Ruth takes the initiative to provide for them. She decides to glean in the fields, a practice allowed under Israelite law, where the poor and foreigners could collect leftover grain after the harvesters had finished. This task, however, is not without its risks. For a foreign woman like Ruth, gleaning could be dangerous due to the potential for mistreatment or harassment in a male-dominated environment. Yet, Ruth bravely engages in this humble work. Her actions demonstrate her strong character and loyalty, setting the stage for the unfolding of her remarkable story in Bethlehem. And this is where she catches the eye of Boaz, a wealthy landowner, and not just any landowner. Boaz happens to be a relative of Naomi's late husband, making him a potential kinsman redeemer. In ancient Israel, a kinsman redeemer was a male relative who had the responsibility to marry a widow and preserve the family line. Boaz notices Ruth's hard work. He asks his workers about Ruth and learns that she's come back with Naomi to take care of her. Ruth 2 verses 5 to 6 state, Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" The overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." This verse shows Boaz's curiosity about Ruth. He is impressed by Ruth's diligence and her loyalty to Naomi. At that moment, Boaz doesn't just see a poor foreigner struggling to survive. He sees her faith, her sacrifice, and her courage. Boaz could ignore Ruth. He could treat her like any other poor gleaner, just another foreigner in need. But he does the opposite. With kindness in his voice, he calls her over and says, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me." This is more than an invitation. It is a promise of protection. In those days, gleaning can be dangerous, especially for a woman alone. Additionally, the Israelites had historical animosities with the Moabites, so Ruth's presence could evoke mixed feelings among the locals. Boaz shows her kindness and protection, allowing her to gather grain from his fields safely. Boaz ensures Ruth's safety, giving her a place among his workers and shielding her from harm. But he doesn't stop there. He makes sure she has plenty of grain to take home, telling his harvesters to leave extra stalks for her. Surprised by such kindness, Ruth humbly asks, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes, since I am a foreigner?" Boaz's answer is powerful. "May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Boaz isn't just generous. He recognizes Ruth's faith. He sees how she has left everything behind to care for Naomi, how she has chosen to trust in Israel's God. His words aren't just a blessing, they are a reminder that God sees every sacrifice, every step of faith, and he is faithful to reward those who trust in him. This is where things take an interesting turn. Naomi, realizing that Boaz is a potential redeemer, devises a plan. She encourages Ruth to approach Boaz and express her desire for him to act as their kinsman redeemer, a role that could provide them both with security. In ancient Israel, a kinsman redeemer is a close relative with the duty to help a family member in need. According to the laws in Leviticus 25, verse 25, and Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 to 6, if a man dies without children, his closest male relative can marry the widow to carry on the family name and inheritance. This practice protects widows from destitution and maintains the continuity of tribal inheritance. Boaz, a wealthy and honorable man from Naomi's extended family, is the perfect person to fulfill this role for Ruth, making him an ideal candidate for redemption. Recognizing this opportunity, Naomi wisely guides Ruth on how to approach Boaz. Naomi instructs Ruth to go to the threshing floor at night and quietly lay at his feet. This is a respectful way of asking him to take care of her and fulfill his duty as a kinsman redeemer. It is not a wrong or improper act, but a sign of trust and a request for protection. Naomi plays a crucial role here, acting as both a mentor and a guide. After the tragedies they face, losing their husbands, Naomi recognizes that their situation requires bold action for survival and security. Ruth follows Naomi's advice, saying, "I will do whatever you say." As the moon casts a soft glow over the threshing floor, Ruth approaches Boaz. Dressed in her finest garments, she moves quietly, her heart pounding with both fear and hope. Under the cover of night, she gently uncovered Boaz's feet and lay down, a gesture laden with symbolism. This act signals her plea for his protection and his role as her kinsman redeemer. When Boaz wakes up and sees Ruth, he's startled but also impressed. He recognizes her courage and loyalty. He tells her, "The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor." Boaz expresses his admiration for Ruth's loyalty and kindness, particularly in her decision to seek him as her kinsman redeemer rather than pursuing younger men. Unlike many men who might misuse such a situation, Boaz responds with integrity and kindness. Instead of taking advantage, he reassures her with words of respect and honor, saying, "Don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask." His response shows his commitment to doing what is right, ensuring that Ruth will be cared for in a proper and honorable way. But Boaz is also a man of integrity. He knows there is another relative closer in line who has the first right to redeem Ruth. Instead of rushing ahead or handling things in secret, Boaz chooses to do things the right way, openly and legally. The next day, Boaz goes to the town gate, a public place where legal matters are settled. There, he meets with the closer relative to discuss the redemption of Naomi's property and the right to marry Ruth. Boaz presents the opportunity to the closer relative, explaining the situation regarding Naomi and the land. The relative initially expresses interest in redeeming the land, but upon learning that marrying Ruth is part of the deal, he declines, fearing it could jeopardize his own inheritance. This opens the door for Boaz. He steps in as Ruth's redeemer, securing not only the land but also his place in her heart. In front of the elders and all the people, he proudly announces, "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records." With these words, Boaz becomes Ruth's redeemer. He not only secures her future, but also honors Naomi, ensuring that her late husband's family name will not be forgotten. This moment is not just about legal matters, it's about love, commitment, and redemption. Finally, Ruth and Boaz marry, and their story takes an even more remarkable turn. They have a son, Obed, who becomes the grandfather of King David. Their story isn't just about kindness and redemption, it is part of God's greater plan, leading to the lineage of Jesus Christ. A Moabite widow and a righteous man of Israel become key figures in God's divine story, proving that His grace extends beyond all boundaries and transforms the lives of those who trust in Him. Boaz stands as a remarkable example of integrity, kindness, and faith in a time when many have turned away from God. Unlike those who seek their own gain, he chooses to live with righteousness, honoring both the law of God and the dignity of others. His story teaches that true strength is found in character, not just wealth or status. He protects the vulnerable, upholds justice, and follows God's ways, even when it requires patience and sacrifice. His decision to redeem Ruth is not just an act of love, it is an act of obedience and faithfulness to God's plan. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more intriguing content. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.